Sometimes life does not shout when it hurts. It goes quiet. You keep moving, keep functioning, but inside you feel worn down, disconnected, and tired of being strong. Staying positive feels like something other people talk about, not something you can actually do. Buddhism teaches that this quiet breaking is not weakness. It is awareness beginning to rise. If life feels heavy right now, this message is for you. What you are about to hear will not ask you to smile through pain. It will show you how to stay strong and positive without losing yourself when life gets hard. 1. Accept that pain is part of being alive. One of the deepest reasons people suffer is not because life hurts, but because they believe it should not hurt at all. From a young age, many of us are taught, directly or indirectly, that a good life is a painless life. We are told that if we do the right things, stay positive, work hard, and behave well, then life should reward us with comfort, stability, and happiness. So when pain arrives, when things fall apart, when emotions feel heavy and overwhelming, the mind immediately assumes something has gone wrong. It starts asking questions filled with fear and self-blame. Why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? Why can't I be like others who seem happy and strong? This belief quietly turns natural human pain into unnecessary suffering. Buddhism offers a very different understanding. It teaches that pain is not a punishment, and it is not a sign of failure. Pain is woven into the fabric of being alive. Every human being, without exception, experiences loss, disappointment, fear, uncertainty, loneliness, and emotional wounds. Even those who appear calm, successful, or joyful carry their own unseen struggles. The difference is not who feels pain and who does not. The difference is how pain is understood and met. When you believe pain should not exist, you fight it. And when you fight pain, it tightens its grip on you. Resistance is what turns pain into something unbearable. The mind resists by replaying the story again and again, by judging the feeling, by wishing reality were different, by telling itself it should be stronger or happier already. This inner resistance creates tension, anxiety, and exhaustion. Buddhism teaches that what you resist persists. Pain grows louder when it is rejected, ignored, or treated as an enemy. But when pain is allowed to exist without judgment, it begins to soften. Not immediately, and not magically, but gently and naturally. Acceptance does not mean giving up or liking what is happening. Acceptance simply means acknowledging what is real in this moment, without adding mental violence to it. It means saying, "This hurts, but I do not need to hate myself for hurting." It means recognizing that pain is present without labeling it as proof that you are weak, broken, or behind in life. The moment you stop arguing with reality, a subtle shift happens inside. Your energy stops leaking into resistance and starts returning to you. There is a quiet strength that emerges when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead say, "This is happening, and I am still here." That simple shift is powerful. It brings you out of victimhood and back into presence. You realize that even though you are hurting, you are still breathing, you are still aware, you are still capable of moving forward, one small step at a time. Strength does not come from pretending pain is not there. Strength comes from staying present with pain without letting it define you. Many people judge themselves harshly for feeling broken. They think something is wrong with them because they feel tired, unmotivated, sad, or overwhelmed. Buddhism teaches that these states are not personal failures. They are natural responses to difficulty. Just as the body needs rest after injury, the mind needs patience after emotional pain. When you stop judging yourself for struggling, healing can begin. Compassion replaces criticism, and understanding replaces shame. Positivity, in this sense, is not forced optimism or fake smiles. True positivity is grounded and honest. It does not deny pain or rush healing. It simply refuses to turn pain into self-hatred or hopelessness. It meets pain with kindness, patience, and awareness. When you allow pain to exist without fear, it loses its power to control you. And in that space of acceptance, real strength quietly grows. 2. Stop identifying yourself with your suffering. When life becomes painful, the mind has a habit of turning experiences into identities. You do not just feel sad. You start believing you are a sad person. You do not just experience failure. You begin to see yourself as a failure. This is one of the most subtle and damaging traps of suffering. Buddhism teaches that pain is something you experience, not something you are. But when hardship lasts for a long time, the mind slowly merges with it. The suffering stops being something that passes through you and starts feeling like who you are. This is when pain becomes heavy, personal, and overwhelming. The mind tells convincing stories during difficult times. It says, "This is my life now. This is how I will always feel. This is who I have become." These thoughts feel real because they repeat themselves every day. But Buddhism teaches that thoughts are not truth. They are mental events, arising and passing like waves on water. Just because a thought appears does not mean it defines you. Just because an emotion is strong does not mean it is permanent. When you believe every thought your mind produces, you become trapped inside it. Suffering deepens when you say, "I am broken," instead of saying, "I am experiencing brokenness." The first statement turns pain into identity. The second creates distance. That distance is not cold or uncaring. It is freeing. It allows you to witness what you are going through without drowning in it. Buddhism calls this awareness. Awareness means you can observe sadness without becoming sadness. You can feel fear without becoming fear. You can experience confusion without losing yourself inside it. Think of emotions like weather passing through the sky. Storms can be violent and long-lasting, but the sky itself is never damaged by them. Buddhism teaches that your true nature is like the sky. Thoughts, emotions, and experiences are like clouds and storms moving through it. When you forget this, you believe the storm is all that exists. When you remember it, you realize there is something stable beneath everything you feel. Identifying with suffering also creates hopelessness. If pain is who you are, then there is no room for change. But when pain is something you are experiencing, change becomes possible. You stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is happening within me right now?" This shift removes shame. It replaces self-blame with curiosity and understanding. Instead of attacking yourself for feeling weak, you begin observing your inner world with patience. Buddhism teaches that clinging to identity is a major source of suffering. This includes clinging to negative identities. When you repeatedly tell yourself that you are damaged, unlucky, or behind in life, the mind holds onto that image tightly. Letting go does not mean denying your pain. It means loosening the grip of the story around it. You allow the experience to exist without turning it into a definition of who you are. When you stop identifying with suffering, something quiet but powerful happens. You begin to feel space inside yourself. Space to breathe, space to rest, space to heal. The pain may still be there, but it no longer owns you. You are no longer drowning inside your emotions. You are standing beside them, aware and present. This is where inner strength begins to form. Positivity grows naturally from this separation. Not forced positivity, not pretending everything is fine, but a grounded sense of stability. You realize that no matter what you are going through, there is a part of you that remains untouched. A part that can observe, endure, and gently move forward. Buddhism teaches that discovering this part of yourself is not escaping life. It is finally meeting it with clarity and strength. 3. Find stability in the present moment. When life becomes overwhelming, the mind rarely stays where the body is. It drifts backward into the past or rushes forward into the future. It replays old mistakes, painful conversations, and moments you wish you could change. Or it imagines worst-case scenarios, fearing what might happen next, how things might fall apart, or how long the pain will last. Buddhism teaches that this constant movement of the mind is one of the main reasons suffering feels unbearable. The pain itself may be real, but the mind multiplies it by refusing to stay in the present moment. The present moment is often misunderstood. Many people think it means ignoring reality or pretending everything is fine. Buddhism teaches something much simpler and more practical. The present moment is just what is happening right now, without the extra stories added by the mind. In this moment, you are breathing. In this moment, you are alive. In this moment, you are here. Even when life is painful, the present moment is usually more stable than the thoughts surrounding it. The mind says everything is falling apart, but the body is still breathing. The heart is still beating. Awareness is still functioning. When you return to the present moment, suffering becomes more manageable. Instead of carrying the weight of your entire life, you deal only with what exists right now. You stop asking how you will survive the next year and focus on how you will breathe through the next minute. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is the only place where strength can exist, because it is the only place where life actually happens. Simple awareness of the body can anchor you when emotions feel out of control, feeling your breath rise and fall, noticing the sensation of your feet on the ground, listening to the sounds around you. These small acts of awareness calm the nervous system and quiet the storm inside the mind. You may still feel pain, but it no longer overwhelms you completely. You are no longer lost in thought. You are rooted in reality. The present moment also protects you from unnecessary suffering. The past cannot hurt you anymore unless you keep reopening it. The future cannot harm you yet unless you imagine it. When the mind stays here, suffering loses much of its power. Buddhism teaches that peace is not found by fixing everything in your life. It is found by learning how to stay present even when life is imperfect. Stability does not mean everything feels calm or comfortable. Stability means you are no longer being pulled in every direction by fear, regret, and anticipation. You learn to sit with what is here without running away or collapsing under it. This creates inner strength. You discover that you can survive this moment, and if you can survive this moment, you can survive the next. Positivity begins to grow naturally when you stop living inside mental time. You are no longer trapped in what was or what might be. You are grounded in what is. In this grounded space, clarity slowly returns. You start responding to life instead of reacting to it. Buddhism teaches that this simple return to the present moment is not an escape from pain. It is the foundation of resilience, awareness, and quiet inner peace. 4. Let go of what you cannot control. When life begins to break you down, one of the deepest sources of inner tension is the need to control everything. The mind desperately wants certainty. It wants to know how things will turn out, how people will behave, and whether the future will be safe. When reality refuses to follow these expectations, frustration and anxiety arise. Buddhism teaches that much of our suffering does not come from what happens, but from our attachment to how we think things should happen. From a young age, we are taught that control equals safety. If we plan carefully enough, work hard enough, or think positively enough, then life should unfold according to our wishes. But life does not move in straight lines. People change, situations shift. Outcomes remain uncertain no matter how much effort we put in. When you try to control what is naturally uncontrollable, the mind becomes exhausted. You feel tense even when nothing is actively wrong, because you are constantly bracing for uncertainty. Buddhism teaches the difference between effort and attachment. Effort means doing what is within your ability, acting with care, and making wise choices. Attachment means needing a specific outcome in order to feel okay. When you are attached, your peace depends on external conditions. When you let go, your peace comes from within. Letting go does not mean becoming passive or careless. It means releasing the belief that you must control every detail to survive. Much of life exists beyond your control. You cannot control how others think, feel, or behave. You cannot control the past, and you cannot fully control the future. You cannot stop change from happening. When you fight these truths, suffering increases. When you accept them, the heart softens. You stop wasting energy on resistance and begin using it where it truly matters. Letting go is an act of trust. It is trusting that you can handle whatever arises, even if you do not know what comes next. Buddhism teaches that clinging creates fear, while letting go creates freedom. When you loosen your grip on expectations, you stop living in constant disappointment. You meet life as it is, not as you demand it to be. When you release the need to control everything, something powerful happens inside. The body relaxes. The mind becomes clearer. You begin responding instead of reacting. You make better decisions because you are no longer driven by panic or desperation. Strength grows from this calm clarity. You realize that even without certainty, you can still move forward with steadiness and dignity. Positivity grows naturally when you stop fighting reality. Instead of feeling defeated by uncertainty, you learn to flow with change. Buddhism teaches that life is like a river. When you try to hold it still, you suffer. When you move with it, you find balance. Letting go does not weaken you, it frees you. And in that freedom, resilience and inner peace quietly take root. 5. Turn suffering into wisdom. When life causes deep pain, the mind often asks, "What is the point of this? Why am I being tested like this? Why does suffering feel so unfair?" Buddhism does not ignore these questions, but it offers a perspective that transforms them. It teaches that suffering is not meaningless. It is one of life's greatest teachers, even though it rarely feels that way while you are inside it. Comfort teaches very little. Difficulty, on the other hand, reveals truth. Suffering forces you to slow down and look inward. When everything is going well, the mind stays distracted. It clings to pleasure, routines, and familiar patterns without questioning them. Pain interrupts this cycle. It strips away illusions and exposes what you are attached to, what you fear losing, and what truly matters to you. Buddhism teaches that awareness grows through discomfort. The moments that hurt the most are often the moments that wake you up the most. Every experience of suffering carries information. It shows you where expectations were placed too tightly, where control was demanded, where identity was attached to outcomes, and where compassion was missing. When you avoid pain, this information is lost. When you stay present with it, wisdom begins to form. You start understanding yourself at a deeper level, not through thinking, but through direct experience. Suffering also deepens empathy. When you have felt pain, you stop judging others so quickly. You recognize struggle behind silence and fear behind anger. Buddhism teaches that compassion is born from shared suffering. You become softer, more patient, and more understanding because you know how heavy life can feel. This is not weakness. It is emotional strength. It is the kind of strength that connects instead of isolates. Turning suffering into wisdom does not mean glorifying pain or believing it is necessary to grow. It simply means recognizing that pain, once it has arrived, can be used rather than wasted. You can let it harden you, or you can let it open you. Buddhism teaches that wisdom arises when you ask not why this happened to me, but what is this teaching me about life, about myself, and about how I respond to difficulty. As wisdom grows, your relationship with pain changes. You stop seeing it only as an enemy and start seeing it as a temporary state that carries lessons. This shift reduces fear. You are no longer as afraid of hard times because you trust your ability to learn and adapt. Strength comes from knowing that even if life breaks you down, it can never take away your capacity to understand, grow, and heal. Positivity begins to feel more grounded at this stage. It is no longer based on hope that nothing bad will happen. It is based on trust in your ability to face whatever does happen. Buddhism teaches that true wisdom is not found in avoiding suffering, but in meeting it with awareness and allowing it to shape you into someone more conscious, compassionate, and resilient. 6. Practice kindness toward yourself. When life becomes overwhelming, many people believe they must be strong by pushing themselves harder, ignoring their emotions, and continuing as if nothing is wrong. The mind often becomes strict and unforgiving during difficult times. It says you should be coping better, you should be more positive, you should not feel this weak. Buddhism teaches that this inner harshness is not strength. It is another form of suffering layered on top of pain. True strength begins with kindness, especially toward yourself. Self-kindness does not come naturally for many people. We learn how to support others, but we forget how to support ourselves. When someone else is struggling, we offer patience, understanding, and care. When we struggle, we often offer judgment, pressure, and criticism. Buddhism teaches that the way you treat yourself during pain directly affects how deeply that pain will wound you. A gentle mind heals faster than a harsh one. Practicing kindness toward yourself means allowing your emotions to exist without attacking them. It means giving yourself permission to feel tired, confused, sad, or lost without turning those feelings into personal failures. Pain already hurts. You do not need to add blame to it. Buddhism teaches that emotions are not commands and they are not threats. They are messages asking for attention and care. When you listen instead of fight, they begin to settle. Kindness also means adjusting your expectations. During hard times, you may not function at your usual level. Your energy may be lower. Your focus may be weaker. Your motivation may come and go. This does not mean you are regressing. It means you are healing. Buddhism teaches that healing is not linear. Some days will feel calm, others will feel heavy. Being kind means allowing this natural rhythm instead of forcing yourself to perform as if nothing is happening. Self-kindness shows itself in small, simple ways. Resting when you are exhausted, eating when you forget to care for your body, speaking to yourself with respect instead of cruelty, giving yourself time instead of deadlines. These are not acts of laziness. They are acts of wisdom. Buddhism teaches that caring for the mind and body is part of the path, not a distraction from it. When you practice kindness toward yourself, your nervous system begins to relax. The constant state of inner tension slowly releases. You feel safer inside your own mind. This sense of inner safety is essential for resilience. You cannot stay strong if you are constantly at war with yourself. Strength grows when the mind becomes a place of refuge rather than punishment. Over time, self-kindness changes the way you relate to the world. You become less reactive because you are no longer constantly wounded inside. You respond with more patience because you are no longer running on emotional exhaustion. Positivity becomes natural rather than forced. It arises from feeling supported from within. Buddhism teaches that compassion is not limited to others. It must include yourself. When life breaks you down, kindness is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is the soil in which healing, clarity, and inner strength slowly grow. 7. Trust that nothing lasts forever. When life becomes unbearably heavy, one of the most painful thoughts the mind creates is the belief that this suffering will never end. Pain feels permanent when you are inside it. Each difficult day blends into the next, and the future starts to look like an endless extension of the present struggle. Buddhism teaches that this belief is one of the greatest illusions of the mind. Nothing in life, no matter how intense, stays the same forever. Change is not an exception to life. It is the very nature of life itself. Impermanence is one of the core teachings of Buddhism. Everything that arises will eventually pass. Emotions change, circumstances shift, relationships evolve, even identities dissolve over time. Yet when pain strikes, the mind forgets this truth. It narrows its focus and convinces you that what you feel now is what you will always feel. This mental contraction creates despair. You stop seeing possibilities. You stop believing in movement. You stop trusting life. Trusting impermanence does not mean denying how much something hurts. It means remembering that pain is a phase, not a destination. Even the longest nights eventually give way to morning. Buddhism teaches that suffering feels endless, not because it is endless, but because the mind is trapped in resistance and fear. When you soften into the truth of change, a small opening appears inside you. Hope does not rush in loudly. It arrives quietly, like a deep breath after holding tension for too long. Everything you have survived in the past once felt unbearable too. At some point in your life, you thought you would never recover from certain moments. And yet, here you are. That does not mean the pain was small. It means you were stronger and more adaptable than you realized. Buddhism teaches that remembering impermanence is not about dismissing pain, but about honoring your capacity to endure and evolve. Trusting that nothing lasts forever also changes how you relate to fear. Much fear comes from imagining that discomfort will stretch on endlessly. When you understand that all experiences are temporary, fear loosens its grip. You stop panicking about how long something will last and focus instead on how to meet it wisely. Strength grows when you realize you do not need to solve your entire future. You only need to meet this moment with awareness. Impermanence also applies to happiness, and Buddhism emphasizes this for a reason. When you understand that joy is temporary too, you stop clinging to it desperately. This balance teaches emotional maturity. You learn to appreciate good moments without attachment and endure difficult moments without despair. Life becomes less of a battle and more of a flow. Positivity, in this sense, is not blind optimism. It is emotional balance rooted in understanding change. When life breaks you down, trusting impermanence allows you to rest inside uncertainty without collapsing. You stop demanding answers you cannot yet have. You stop forcing clarity before it is ready to appear. Buddhism teaches that clarity often comes after patience, not before. The seed breaks before it grows. The old form dissolves before the new one appears. What feels like falling apart may actually be a transition you cannot yet see. Impermanence also reminds you that you are not stuck as the version of yourself you are today. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to grow beyond this chapter. Pain does not define your future unless you believe it does. When you trust that life is always moving, even when it feels still, you regain a sense of quiet faith. Not faith in specific outcomes, but faith in movement itself. This trust does not remove pain instantly, but it softens the edges of despair. It keeps you from giving up during moments when everything feels pointless. Buddhism teaches that endurance is not about forcing yourself to be strong. It is about staying present long enough for change to happen. When you trust impermanence, you stop asking when the pain will end and start focusing on how to care for yourself while it exists. Positivity grows from this trust in a grounded and realistic way. You are no longer positive because you believe nothing bad will happen. You are positive because you know nothing bad can stay forever. You begin to move through life with steadiness rather than panic. You allow yourself to feel pain without letting it convince you that life is over. When life breaks you down, remembering impermanence becomes an anchor. It reminds you that this moment, no matter how heavy, is temporary. That you are still in motion, even if you cannot feel it. That healing does not need your impatience, only your presence. And slowly, quietly, without force, the weight begins to lift, not because you fought it, but because everything, by nature, eventually changes. 8. Learn to sit with discomfort without running from it. When life becomes painful, the natural instinct of the mind is to escape. It looks for distractions, numbing habits, constant noise, endless thinking, or emotional avoidance. Anything that keeps you from fully feeling what is happening inside. Buddhism teaches that this constant need to escape discomfort is one of the deepest reasons suffering continues for so long. Pain itself is difficult, but the refusal to feel it creates a second layer of suffering that is often far heavier than the original wound. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is a signal. It is the body and mind communicating that something needs attention, rest, understanding, or healing. But when discomfort arises, many people immediately tense up. They distract themselves with endless scrolling, overworking, emotional eating, unhealthy attachments, or constant mental noise. These behaviors may offer short relief, but they quietly train the mind to fear its own inner experience. Over time, this fear grows stronger than the pain itself. Buddhism teaches that freedom begins when you learn how to sit with discomfort without trying to escape it. Sitting with discomfort does not mean forcing yourself to suffer or relive trauma. It means allowing what is present to be present without panic, judgment, or resistance. It means staying with the sensation, emotion, or heaviness just long enough to understand it, rather than immediately running away from it. When you stay with discomfort, something unexpected happens. The pain begins to change, not because you are controlling it, but because all experiences are dynamic. Emotions rise, peak, and fall on their own when they are not fueled by resistance. Fear intensifies when you fight it. Sadness deepens when you judge it. Anxiety grows when you try to outrun it. But when you allow these states to exist without interference, they slowly lose their intensity. The mind often believes that sitting with discomfort will destroy you. It tells you that if you fully feel this pain, you will collapse, lose control, or never recover. Buddhism teaches that this belief is an illusion. You have already felt pain many times in your life and survived. What overwhelms you is not the feeling itself, but the story that says it is unbearable. When you remove the story and stay with the sensation, you discover that discomfort is intense but temporary. Sitting with discomfort builds inner strength in a quiet and powerful way. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop needing everything to be perfect in order to feel okay. You begin trusting your ability to handle difficult emotions. This trust changes your entire relationship with life. Instead of fearing hard moments, you meet them with steadiness. You no longer panic at the first sign of pain. You breathe, you observe, you remain present. Buddhism teaches mindfulness as a way to sit with discomfort safely. Mindfulness means noticing what is happening without trying to change it. You notice tightness in the chest without labeling it as danger. You notice heaviness in the body without calling it failure. You notice sadness without turning it into a story about your entire life. This simple awareness creates space between you and the experience. In that space, suffering begins to loosen. Discomfort often carries important messages. It may be showing you exhaustion you have ignored for too long. It may be pointing to boundaries you have not honored. It may be revealing grief you never allowed yourself to feel. When you constantly escape discomfort, these messages are buried. When you sit with it, clarity begins to emerge. You start understanding yourself more deeply, not through thinking, but through direct awareness. Learning to sit with discomfort also reduces fear of the future. Much anxiety comes from imagining future pain and believing you will not be able to handle it. When you practice staying with present discomfort, you build confidence in your resilience. You learn that even when things feel uncomfortable, you remain intact. This confidence creates emotional stability. You are no longer constantly bracing yourself against life. Buddhism teaches that peace is not the absence of discomfort, it is the absence of resistance. When you stop fighting what you feel, the nervous system calms, the body relaxes, the mind becomes clearer. You may still feel pain, but it no longer controls you. You are no longer consumed by it. You are aware of it, and awareness is always stronger than fear. Sitting with discomfort also teaches patience. Healing cannot be rushed. Growth cannot be forced. Buddhism emphasizes patience because deep transformation happens slowly, beneath the surface. Just as muddy water becomes clear when left undisturbed, the mind becomes clearer when you stop stirring it with resistance. When you allow discomfort to settle on its own, insight and calm naturally arise. This practice also changes how you respond to others. When you are comfortable sitting with your own discomfort, you become more patient with the discomfort of others. You listen better. You react less. You judge less. You no longer feel the need to fix or escape every difficult emotion. Compassion deepens because you understand pain from the inside. Over time, learning to sit with discomfort transforms your identity. You stop seeing yourself as fragile or weak. You realize that strength is not about avoiding pain, but about staying present within it. This realization is deeply empowering. Life no longer feels like something you must constantly escape from. It becomes something you can meet fully, moment by moment. Positivity grows naturally from this practice, but it is a mature positivity. It is not based on constant happiness or comfort. It is based on trust. Trust that you can handle difficult emotions. Trust that discomfort will pass. Trust that you do not need to run from yourself. Buddhism teaches that when you stop running, you finally arrive home. When life breaks you down, learning to sit with discomfort becomes one of the most important skills you can develop. It allows you to remain grounded in the middle of chaos. It prevents pain from turning into panic. It teaches you that nothing inside you is too much to face. And from that understanding, a deep, steady strength begins to rise, quietly and without force. 9. Build inner strength that does not depend on outer conditions. When life is going well, it is easy to feel strong and positive. The real test comes when circumstances turn against you, when plans collapse, relationships strain, health weakens, or uncertainty takes over. Buddhism teaches that strength based only on outer conditions is fragile. If your sense of peace depends on success, approval, comfort, or certainty, it will always be vulnerable. The moment something changes, your stability disappears. True strength, according to Buddhism, is built inwardly. It does not rise and fall with circumstances. It remains steady even when life feels unstable. Many people unknowingly build their identity on external support. They feel confident when things are working out and defeated when they are not. Their mood follows events, opinions, and outcomes. Buddhism teaches that this is a form of attachment. When your inner state depends on the outer world, you give away your power. You become reactive instead of grounded. Inner strength begins when you stop outsourcing your peace to things you cannot control. Building inner strength does not mean becoming emotionally cold or detached from life. It means developing a stable inner foundation that can hold both joy and pain without collapsing. Buddhism teaches that this foundation is awareness, patience, and self-understanding. When you know how to stay present, kind, and clear during difficulty, life no longer controls your inner state completely. You may still feel pain, but it does not destroy you. One of the first steps in building inner strength is learning to rely on your own presence. When life breaks you down, you may instinctively look for someone or something to save you. While support is valuable, Buddhism teaches that the deepest refuge must be found within. This does not mean isolating yourself. It means knowing that even when no one understands you fully, you can still remain grounded and compassionate with yourself. Inner strength grows through repeated moments of staying instead of escaping. Each time you sit with discomfort instead of running from it, your capacity increases. Each time you respond with patience instead of panic, your confidence deepens. Each time you choose awareness over reaction, your mind becomes more resilient. Buddhism teaches that strength is not built in one dramatic moment. It is built quietly, through consistent inner practice. When your strength is internal, failure does not destroy your self-worth. Criticism does not define you. Uncertainty does not paralyze you. You begin to understand that circumstances change, but your ability to meet them with awareness remains. This understanding brings a deep sense of security. You stop fearing life as much because you trust yourself to handle what arises. Inner strength also changes how you relate to success and happiness. You enjoy good moments without clinging to them. You appreciate ease without fearing its loss. Buddhism teaches that when you are not dependent on outcomes, you experience life more fully. Joy becomes lighter, pain becomes more workable, everything flows more naturally. Developing inner strength requires patience. There will be days when you feel steady and days when you feel fragile again. Buddhism teaches that regression is not failure, it is part of growth. Each time you return to awareness after being lost, strength deepens. Each return matters. Nothing is wasted. Inner strength also brings humility. You stop trying to appear strong and start being honest about your limits. This honesty prevents burnout and emotional collapse. You listen to your needs. You rest when necessary. You ask for help without shame. Buddhism teaches that true strength includes knowing when to soften. As inner strength grows, positivity changes its meaning. It is no longer about forcing hope or optimism. It becomes quiet confidence. Confidence that you can remain present even when things are unclear. Confidence that you can endure difficulty without losing your integrity. Confidence that you are not broken just because life feels heavy. When life breaks you down, outer structures may fall apart, but inner strength remains available. Buddhism teaches that this inner refuge cannot be taken away by loss, failure, or change. It is built through awareness, compassion, and repeated acts of presence. And once it is established, it becomes the ground you stand on, no matter how unpredictable life becomes. This is the strength that allows you to stay positive without pretending, the strength that allows you to keep going without denying pain, the strength that does not shout, but quietly holds everything together from within. 10. Live with faith in your ability to begin again. When life breaks you down repeatedly, one of the most damaging beliefs that forms in the mind is the idea that you have missed your chance. The mind starts whispering that it is too late, that too much damage has been done, that you are too tired, too far behind, or too broken to start again. Buddhism teaches that this belief is not truth. It is exhaustion speaking. It is fear disguising itself as realism. In reality, the ability to begin again is always alive within you, no matter how many times you have fallen. Beginning again does not mean starting from zero. It means starting from experience. Every hardship you have endured has shaped your awareness, your sensitivity, and your understanding of life. Even the pain that felt meaningless has added depth to you. Buddhism teaches that nothing you have lived through is wasted. Every moment of suffering carries the seed of wisdom, even if you cannot see it yet. When you begin again, you do so with more clarity than before, not less. The mind often resists new beginnings because it fears disappointment. It remembers past attempts that failed and assumes the same outcome will repeat. Buddhism teaches that the future is not a continuation of the past unless you cling to it. Each moment is new. Each breath is a reset. The past only controls you if you allow it to live inside your present awareness. When you let go of the past as an identity, you free yourself to move forward differently. Beginning again does not require dramatic action. It starts quietly. It may look like choosing to care for yourself today after neglecting yourself for a long time. It may look like forgiving yourself for choices made in pain. It may look like taking one small step without knowing where it will lead. Buddhism teaches that small, mindful actions carry immense power when done with awareness. You do not need to rebuild your entire life at once. You only need to begin where you are. Faith, in Buddhism, is not blind belief. It is trust built through understanding, trust that change is possible, trust that effort matters even when results are not immediate, trust that you are not fixed in one state forever. This kind of faith does not ignore difficulty. It stands beside it. It allows you to move forward without demanding certainty. When life breaks you down, you may feel disconnected from hope. Buddhism teaches that hope does not need to be strong to be real. Even a quiet willingness to continue is enough. Even the decision to not give up today is a form of strength. Beginning again is not about enthusiasm. It is about presence. Showing up even when motivation is low. Choosing awareness even when confidence is shaken. The fear of beginning again often comes from perfectionism. The mind believes that if you cannot do something fully or flawlessly, there is no point in trying. Buddhism teaches the opposite. Growth is imperfect. Healing is uneven. Progress comes in waves. You begin again many times, not just once. Each beginning teaches you something new. Each attempt strengthens your resilience. Living with the willingness to begin again also softens your relationship with failure. Failure no longer feels like a final verdict. It becomes feedback. You learn what does not work, what drains you, what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. Buddhism teaches that wisdom grows through trial, not avoidance. When you allow yourself to begin again without shame, failure loses its power to define you. Beginning again also means allowing yourself to change direction. You may realize that what you once wanted no longer fits. Buddhism teaches non-attachment, not just to pain, but also to old dreams and identities. Letting go of an outdated version of yourself is not loss. It is growth. Each new beginning reflects a deeper understanding of who you truly are. As you practice beginning again, inner confidence slowly grows. Not the loud confidence that depends on success, but a quiet confidence rooted in trust. Trust that no matter what happens, you can respond. Trust that even if things fall apart, you can rebuild differently. Trust that you are not defined by your worst moments. This confidence brings a deep sense of peace. You stop fearing endings because you trust beginnings. You stop clinging to certainty because you trust your adaptability. Buddhism teaches that life is a continuous process of arising and passing. When you align with this truth, you stop resisting change and start moving with it. Living with faith in your ability to begin again does not mean life becomes easy. It means life becomes workable. You no longer feel trapped by circumstances or by your own history. You understand that each moment offers a choice, however small, and that choice is always available. When life breaks you down, this lesson becomes a lifeline. You may not feel strong, hopeful, or clear, but you can still begin again. With one breath, with one kind thought, with one honest step. Buddhism teaches that awakening does not happen in perfect conditions. It happens in broken moments, when you choose presence over despair, and slowly, through patience, awareness, and repeated beginnings, strength returns. Not as something loud or dramatic, but as something steady and unshakable. A quiet knowing that no matter how many times life breaks you down, you are always capable of starting again, wiser, gentler, and more deeply rooted than before. 11. Remain grounded even when life does not make sense. There are moments in life when understanding disappears. You try to find meaning, logic, or explanation, but nothing fits. Pain arrives without warning. Loss happens without fairness. Effort does not always lead to reward. In these moments, the mind becomes restless. It searches desperately for answers. Why did this happen? What is the lesson? When will this end? Buddhism teaches that this constant demand for meaning can itself become a source of suffering. Not everything in life is meant to be immediately understood. Some experiences are meant to be endured before they are understood. When life does not make sense, the mind often feels unsafe. It wants clarity because clarity feels like control. When answers are missing, anxiety grows. Buddhism teaches that uncertainty is not a flaw in life. It is an essential part of it. Trying to force meaning too quickly often leads to false conclusions, self-blame, or despair. Sometimes the most skillful response is not to understand, but to remain grounded despite not understanding. Remaining grounded means staying connected to what is real and present, even when the bigger picture feels confusing. It means returning to simple awareness when the mind is overwhelmed by questions, feeling the breath, noticing the body, observing thoughts without chasing them. These grounding practices do not solve the situation, but they stabilize you within it. Buddhism teaches that stability is more important than certainty during times of confusion. When life breaks you down, the mind often believes that understanding will bring relief. But many people discover that even after understanding, pain can still exist. Buddhism teaches that peace does not always come from answers. It often comes from acceptance. Acceptance that you may not know why something happened. Acceptance that clarity may come later, or not at all. This acceptance softens resistance and allows you to breathe again. Remaining grounded also means not turning confusion into self-judgment. When things do not make sense, people often assume they are doing something wrong or missing something obvious. Buddhism teaches that confusion is not a personal failure. It is a natural response to complexity and uncertainty. Life is larger than the mind's ability to fully explain it. You are not weak because you feel lost. You are human. Groundedness is built through presence rather than analysis. When the mind spirals into endless questioning, it often becomes exhausted and hopeless. Buddhism teaches that the mind needs rest, not constant problem-solving. Resting does not mean avoiding reality. It means giving yourself permission to not have all the answers right now. This permission creates emotional space. In that space, resilience quietly forms. Remaining grounded during confusion also prevents despair. When you believe that life must make sense in order for you to continue, hopelessness easily arises. But when you accept that some chapters are unclear, You stop demanding certainty before moving forward. You continue living, caring for yourself, and staying present, even without understanding. This is a deep form of strength. Buddhism teaches that wisdom often arrives after suffering has softened, not while it is at its peak. Trying to extract meaning too early can feel like forcing open a door that is not ready to open. Remaining grounded allows time to do its work. It allows emotions to settle, perspectives to shift, and insight to emerge naturally, without pressure. Groundedness also protects you from extreme emotional swings. When life does not make sense, the mind may jump between hope and despair, belief and disbelief. Staying grounded means not attaching completely to any single mental state. You observe hope when it arises. You observe despair when it arises. You do not cling to either. Buddhism teaches that balance is found in awareness, not in conclusions. Remaining grounded helps you maintain dignity during hardship. You may not know where life is going, but you can choose how you meet it. You can choose patience instead of panic, presence instead of avoidance, kindness instead of bitterness. These choices do not require understanding, they require awareness. And awareness is always available to you. Over time, remaining grounded through confusion builds deep inner trust. Trust not that everything will make sense, but that you can remain steady even when it does not. This trust becomes a powerful inner anchor. You stop feeling lost just because answers are missing. You stop collapsing when certainty disappears. You learn to live without forcing clarity. Buddhism teaches that life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Some experiences are meant to be lived through, not analyzed. When you stop demanding meaning before you are ready, life begins to feel less hostile. You stop fighting the unknown and start coexisting with it. Eventually, understanding may come, or it may not come in the way you expect. But when it does arrive, it arrives gently, without desperation, because you remained grounded, because you did not abandon yourself during confusion, because you stayed present even when nothing made sense. When life breaks you down and meaning disappears, this lesson becomes essential. You do not need to figure everything out to keep going. You do not need answers to remain human, kind, and aware. Remaining grounded in the middle of uncertainty is not weakness. It is one of the highest forms of inner strength. And in that grounded presence, even without understanding, a quiet peace begins to form, a peace that does not depend on explanations, a peace that exists simply because you are still here, breathing, aware, and willing to meet life as it is. 12. Allow life to break you open, not close you down. When life becomes unbearably painful, there is a quiet crossroads inside you. One path leads toward closing down, hardening, and protecting yourself from ever feeling that kind of pain again. The other path leads toward opening, softening, and allowing the pain to change you without destroying you. Buddhism teaches that suffering does not automatically make a person wise or strong. It simply reveals a choice. Pain can either close the heart or deepen it. The direction it takes depends on how you meet it. Closing down often feels like strength at first. You stop trusting. You stop feeling deeply. You become guarded, distant, and emotionally armored. The mind convinces you that this is self-protection. But Buddhism teaches that when the heart closes, suffering does not end, it only goes underground. Pain that is not allowed to move through awareness becomes bitterness, numbness, resentment, or quiet despair. You may survive, but you stop fully living. Allowing life to break you open does not mean becoming fragile or defenseless. It means refusing to let pain turn you into someone smaller, colder, or less alive. Buddhism teaches that the heart has an incredible capacity to expand through difficulty. Just as muscles grow through resistance, Awareness grows through honest contact with pain. When you allow yourself to feel without collapsing or hardening, something profound happens inside. You begin to grow in depth rather than closing in fear. Breaking open is not dramatic or sudden. It often happens slowly, in moments when you choose softness instead of resistance, when you allow yourself to grieve instead of suppressing tears, when you admit exhaustion instead of pretending to be strong, when you stay kind even after being hurt. These moments reshape you from the inside. Buddhism teaches that openness is not weakness, it is courage without armor. Pain often tries to convince you that the world is unsafe and that love leads only to loss. Buddhism teaches that pain is not proof that love was a mistake, it is proof that you cared. Closing your heart may prevent future hurt, but it also prevents connection, joy, and meaning. When you allow yourself to stay open, even cautiously, you preserve your humanity. You remain capable of compassion, understanding, and presence. Allowing life to break you open also changes how you see others. You stop seeing people only as threats or disappointments. You begin recognizing shared vulnerability. You understand that everyone is carrying invisible weight. Buddhism teaches that this recognition is the foundation of compassion. Compassion is not something you force. It naturally arises when your own heart has been broken open rather than sealed shut. Breaking open also means letting go of who you thought you had to be. Pain often destroys old identities. The version of you that believed life should be fair, predictable, or controllable begins to dissolve. This can feel terrifying. Buddhism teaches that this dissolution is not loss, but transformation. When false certainties fall away, deeper wisdom can emerge. You stop clinging to rigid expectations and start meeting life as it truly is. Many people fear that if they fully feel pain, they will drown in it. Buddhism teaches that awareness is always larger than suffering. When you allow pain to be felt within awareness, it moves, it breathes, it shifts. Suppressed pain stagnates. Felt pain transforms. Allowing yourself to break open creates movement where there was once rigidity. Breaking open also restores sensitivity. Hardship often dulls joy because the heart has closed to protect itself. When you remain open, joy returns in quieter forms. A moment of calm, a deep breath, a kind word. Buddhism teaches that joy does not disappear forever. It becomes subtler, deeper, and more meaningful when the heart has known pain. Allowing life to break you open requires trust. Trust that openness will not destroy you. Trust that awareness can hold whatever arises. Trust that vulnerability does not equal helplessness. Buddhism teaches that the heart is resilient when it remains honest. What truly weakens you is pretending you are untouched by pain. Breaking open also means releasing the need to be invulnerable. You allow yourself to be human again, to need rest, to need support, to need time. This humility is not defeat. It is alignment with reality. Buddhism teaches that suffering lessens when you stop fighting your own humanity. Over time, allowing life to break you open changes your relationship with strength. Strength no longer means endurance through numbness. It means staying present through feeling. It means remaining gentle in a world that can be harsh. It means choosing awareness over armor. This form of strength is quiet, but unshakable. When life breaks you down, this lesson becomes essential. You can let pain close you off from life, or you can let it open you to deeper understanding. Buddhism teaches that awakening does not come from avoiding suffering. It comes from meeting it fully, honestly, and without turning away. And when you allow yourself to break open instead of shut down, something remarkable happens. You do not become weaker. You become wider, more compassionate, more grounded, more alive. Life may still hurt, but it no longer hardens you. It deepens you. 13. Learn to trust your inner stillness when everything around you is loud. When life becomes chaotic, the world around you grows loud. Opinions multiply. Advice pours in. Expectations press from every direction. People tell you what you should do, how you should feel, how fast you should heal, and what your next step must be. In the middle of this noise, the mind becomes overwhelmed. You start doubting yourself. You lose touch with your own rhythm. Buddhism teaches that when the outer world becomes loud, the most important place to listen is within. Inner stillness is not the absence of thought or emotion. It is the quiet awareness beneath them. It is the part of you that notices the chaos without becoming consumed by it. Buddhism teaches that this stillness is always present, even during intense suffering, but it is often ignored because the mind is trained to look outward for direction, reassurance, and certainty. When life breaks you down, returning to inner stillness becomes an act of survival and wisdom. The noise of life often creates urgency. You feel pressured to make decisions quickly, to fix things immediately, to move on before you are ready. Buddhism teaches that urgency is often fear in disguise. When you act from fear, clarity disappears. Inner stillness slows you down just enough to see clearly. It reminds you that you do not need to react to everything. You do not need to answer every question right now. Some things become clearer only when you stop forcing movement. Trusting inner stillness means learning to pause before reacting. When emotions surge, instead of immediately responding, you allow a moment of awareness. This pause creates space. In that space, wisdom has room to arise. Buddhism teaches that the most skillful actions often come from stillness, not impulse. When you move from calm awareness, your choices are more aligned, even if the outcome is uncertain. Inner stillness also protects you from being pulled apart by conflicting voices. One person says you should let go, another says you should fight. One says move on, another says wait. When you listen only to the outside, confusion increases. Buddhism teaches that your inner stillness carries a form of intelligence that does not shout. It speaks quietly through subtle feelings, clarity, and calm knowing. Trusting it requires patience and humility. When life breaks you down, you may feel disconnected from this stillness at first. Pain can be loud. Fear can be overwhelming. Buddhism teaches that stillness is not something you create. It is something you return to. Even a single conscious breath can reconnect you to it. Even a moment of silence can reveal it. The stillness was never gone. It was simply covered by noise. Trusting inner stillness does not mean isolating yourself from others or rejecting help. It means using stillness as your inner compass. You listen to advice, but you filter it through awareness. You take in information, but you do not let it override your own sense of truth. Buddhism teaches that wisdom arises when external input meets internal clarity. Inner stillness also helps you endure uncertainty. When answers are unclear and outcomes are unknown, stillness provides stability. You may not know what to do next, but you know how to be present. You know how to breathe. You know how to stay grounded. This grounded presence prevents panic. It allows life to unfold without constant interference. As you learn to trust stillness, your relationship with silence changes. Silence no longer feels empty or threatening. It becomes nourishing. In silence, the mind rests. The nervous system resets. Emotions settle. Buddhism teaches that silence is not withdrawal from life. It is deep engagement with it. It allows you to meet reality without distortion. Trusting inner stillness also deepens self-respect. You stop abandoning yourself to please others or meet expectations that do not align with your truth. You become less reactive and more intentional. Strength grows from this alignment. You are no longer pushed and pulled by every circumstance. You move with steadiness, even in difficulty. Over time, inner stillness becomes a refuge, not a place to escape life, but a place to meet it from. You carry it with you into conversations, decisions, and challenges. Buddhism teaches that this stillness is the ground of awareness itself. It cannot be damaged by chaos, loss, or confusion. It remains intact beneath everything you experience. When life breaks you down, learning to trust your inner stillness becomes a turning point. You stop looking everywhere for answers and start listening within. You stop reacting to noise and start responding from presence. This trust does not make life predictable. It makes you resilient. And in that resilience, a quiet confidence grows. Confidence not in outcomes, but in your ability to remain centered. Confidence that no matter how loud the world becomes, there is a still place within you that remains untouched, steady, and awake. 14. Understand that healing is not a straight line. When life breaks you down, many people expect healing to move forward in a clean, upward direction. They believe that once they start feeling better, they should continue improving without falling back. When pain returns, when sadness resurfaces, or when old wounds reopen, they assume something has gone wrong. Buddhism teaches that this belief creates unnecessary suffering. Healing is not a straight line. It moves in cycles, waves, and seasons. Progress and difficulty often exist side by side. The mind wants certainty and visible improvement. It wants clear proof that things are getting better. When healing feels slow or uneven, frustration arises. You may start comparing yourself to others, wondering why you are still struggling while they appear to have moved on. Buddhism teaches that comparison distorts reality. Every person heals at their own pace, shaped by their experiences, temperament, and depth of pain. There is no universal timeline for recovery. Healing often brings unexpected emotions to the surface. When you begin to feel safer, buried feelings may rise. This can feel confusing and discouraging. You may think you are moving backward, but Buddhism teaches that this is often a sign of progress. The mind releases pain only when it feels ready. What surfaces is not new suffering, but old suffering finally asking to be acknowledged. Healing requires patience with this process. Setbacks are not failures. They are reminders that pain has layers. Some wounds heal quickly. Others require repeated care. Buddhism teaches that compassion must be extended repeatedly, not just once. You may need to forgive yourself many times. You may need to rest more than you expected. This does not mean you are weak. It means you are listening. Healing also challenges identity. When pain has been present for a long time, it can become familiar. You may feel unsure of who you are without it. Buddhism teaches that this uncertainty is part of transformation. Old identities dissolve before new ones form. Feeling lost does not mean you are failing. It means you are changing. Expecting constant strength creates pressure. You may force yourself to be positive even when you feel heavy. Buddhism teaches that forced positivity blocks genuine healing. True healing allows all emotions to exist without judgment. Some days will feel hopeful, other days will feel quiet or low. Both belong, both are part of the path. Understanding that healing is not linear allows you to soften toward yourself. You stop demanding perfection. You stop measuring progress constantly. You trust the process instead of controlling it. Buddhism teaches that trust reduces resistance, and resistance is what prolongs suffering. Healing also unfolds differently in different areas of life. You may feel emotionally stronger but still struggle with motivation. You may gain clarity but still feel tired. Progress does not arrive all at once. It arrives gradually, often unnoticed. Buddhism teaches that subtle shifts matter more than dramatic breakthroughs. Patience becomes essential. Healing cannot be rushed without harm. When you rush, you ignore signals of fatigue and overwhelm. Buddhism teaches that listening is more important than pushing. Rest is not delay. It is part of healing. Over time, uneven healing builds resilience. You learn that difficult days do not erase growth. You learn that returning pain does not mean you are back at the beginning. You carry everything you have learned forward, even when emotions fluctuate. When life breaks you down, understanding the nature of healing protects you from despair. You stop labeling yourself as broken each time pain resurfaces. You stop fearing difficult days. You learn to meet each phase with awareness rather than panic. Healing becomes less about reaching a destination and more about developing a relationship with yourself. A relationship based on patience, honesty, and care. Buddhism teaches that this relationship is the true measure of progress. And slowly, without force, healing continues. Not in a straight line, but in a way that deepens wisdom, strengthens compassion, and restores trust in your ability to endure and grow. 15. Choose presence over despair. There comes a point in deep hardship when the mind stops looking for solutions and starts slipping into despair. Despair is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet. It feels like numbness, fatigue, or a loss of interest in things that once mattered. It feels like waking up without hope, moving through the day on autopilot, or wondering what the point of continuing really is. Buddhism teaches that despair is not a personal failure. It is what happens when the mind becomes disconnected from the present moment and overwhelmed by the weight of everything at once. Despair grows when the mind believes it must carry the entire burden of life in one moment. It looks at the past with regret, the future with fear, and the present with exhaustion. Buddhism teaches that the mind was never meant to hold all of time at once. When you try to do so, the nervous system collapses under the pressure. Presence is the antidote, not because it fixes everything, but because it reduces life back to what is manageable. Choosing presence does not mean forcing yourself to feel hopeful or optimistic. It means choosing to stay here instead of mentally disappearing. It means noticing that you are breathing even when you feel empty. It means acknowledging that this moment exists, even if it feels painful. Buddhism teaches that presence is an act of courage when despair is strong. Staying with the moment, rather than escaping into numbness or hopeless stories, keeps you connected to life. Despair often convinces you that nothing you do matters, that no effort will change anything. Buddhism teaches that this belief comes from exhaustion, not truth. When you are depleted, the mind loses perspective. Presence restores perspective by narrowing focus. Instead of asking, "How will I survive this life?" you ask, "How will I meet this moment?" That shift changes everything. One moment is survivable. One breath is manageable. One step is possible. Presence also softens despair because it interrupts the stories that fuel it. Despair thrives on mental narratives about permanence. It tells you that pain will never end, that you are trapped, that nothing will improve. Buddhism teaches that these are thoughts, not facts. When you bring awareness to the present, these stories lose their intensity. You may still hear them, but you are no longer completely inside them. Choosing presence means allowing yourself to feel without drowning. You feel sadness, but you also feel the ground beneath you. You feel fear, but you also feel the rhythm of your breath. Buddhism teaches that awareness holds pain without becoming pain. This holding is gentle and spacious. It allows emotions to move rather than freeze. Presence also reconnects you to small experiences of life that despair obscures. The warmth of light through a window, the sound of a bird, the sensation of water on your skin. These moments may seem insignificant, But Buddhism teaches that they are anchors. They remind the nervous system that life is still happening, that not everything is lost, even when much feels broken. When despair is strong, the mind often seeks certainty as relief. It wants guarantees that things will improve. Buddhism teaches that demanding certainty during pain increases suffering. Presence offers a different kind of relief. It offers steadiness without promises. You may not know how things will unfold, but you know how to stay with what is happening now. This steadiness builds resilience quietly, without drama. Choosing presence also protects you from harmful conclusions. Despair pushes the mind toward extreme thinking. It says, always, never, everything is ruined, nothing matters. Buddhism teaches that extreme thoughts arise when awareness is lost. Presence brings balance back. You begin to see shades instead of absolutes. You remember that life is complex, layered, and constantly changing. Presence does not remove pain immediately, but it changes your relationship with it. Pain becomes an experience you are having, not an identity you are trapped in. This distinction is crucial. Buddhism teaches that when you remain present, you create space between awareness and suffering. In that space, despair weakens. Choosing presence repeatedly builds trust. Trust that you can remain here even when it is uncomfortable. Trust that you do not need to disappear to survive. Trust that awareness can hold whatever arises. This trust becomes an inner anchor during dark times. Presence also opens the door to compassion. When you are present with your own pain, you stop judging it. You stop demanding that it go away. Buddhism teaches that compassion arises naturally from presence. You meet yourself as you are, not as you think you should be. This self-compassion reduces despair more effectively than harsh motivation ever could. Over time, choosing presence reshapes your inner world. You become less afraid of difficult emotions. You stop collapsing when heaviness appears. You remain connected even when hope feels distant. Buddhism teaches that awakening is not about transcending pain, but about staying awake within it. When life breaks you down, presence becomes an act of quiet defiance against despair. You are saying, I am still here. I am still breathing. I am still aware. This may not feel heroic, but it is deeply powerful. Every moment of presence keeps the door to healing open, and slowly, without forcing it, despair begins to loosen, not because you fought it, but because you stayed. You stayed with the breath, you stayed with awareness, you stayed with life, even when it felt unbearably heavy. That staying is strength. That staying is wisdom. That staying is the foundation upon which renewal quietly begins. 16. Let go of the need to be the same person you used to be. When life breaks you down deeply, one of the most painful struggles is not just what you are going through, but who you believe you are supposed to remain. The mind clings tightly to an old version of yourself, the version that was stronger, happier, more confident, more productive, more hopeful. You may look back and wonder where that person went, why you cannot be them anymore, and whether losing that version of yourself means you have failed. Buddhism teaches that this clinging to an old identity is a hidden source of suffering. You are not meant to stay the same. Change is not a betrayal of who you were. It is the natural movement of life. When hardship enters your life, it often changes you at a deep level. Your priorities shift, your energy changes, your sensitivity increases. What once mattered may no longer feel important. What once motivated you may now feel empty. This can feel frightening because the mind equates familiarity with safety. Buddhism teaches that the self is not a fixed object. It is a process, constantly evolving. When you resist this evolution, pain intensifies. When you allow it, growth begins. Many people try to heal by forcing themselves back into their old identity. They tell themselves they need to be who they were before the pain. But Buddhism teaches that there is no going back, only moving forward differently. The person you were before the breakdown existed under different conditions. Expecting yourself to function the same way after being changed by suffering is unrealistic and unkind. Healing begins when you stop demanding that you be who you used to be. Letting go of an old self can feel like grief. You may mourn your old confidence, your old dreams, your old way of relating to life. Buddhism teaches that grief is appropriate here. You are not weak for missing who you once were. But grief does not mean you must stay attached. It means honoring what was while allowing space for what is becoming. Life's breakdowns often dissolve false identities. Identities built on performance, approval, productivity, or control. When these identities fall apart, it feels like losing yourself. Buddhism teaches that what falls away is often what was never truly stable. What remains beneath is something deeper and more resilient. Awareness, presence, compassion. These qualities do not depend on circumstances. They are revealed when surface identities collapse. Letting go of who you used to be also frees you from unnecessary comparison. You stop measuring your present self against your past self. You stop judging your current pace, capacity, and emotional state through outdated expectations. Buddhism teaches that comparison is suffering, especially comparison with a version of yourself that no longer exists. When you release this comparison, you regain dignity. You meet yourself where you are instead of where you think you should be. This letting go does not mean abandoning growth. It means redefining it. Growth no longer means becoming faster, stronger, or more impressive. It means becoming more aware, more honest, and more compassionate. Buddhism teaches that true maturity comes from accepting change rather than resisting it. When you stop fighting your evolution, life feels less hostile. Letting go of your old self also opens the door to authenticity. You no longer need to perform strength when you feel tired. You no longer need to chase goals that no longer resonate. You begin making choices that align with who you are now, not who you were expected to be. This alignment brings peace. Not because life becomes easy, but because it becomes honest. There is fear in letting go, fear that you will lose direction, fear that you will disappoint others, fear that you will become smaller. Buddhism teaches that this fear is natural but misleading. You do not become smaller when you let go of old identities. You become lighter. You carry less weight that no longer belongs to you. As you allow yourself to change, new forms of strength emerge. A quieter strength, a deeper patience, a sensitivity that allows you to understand life more fully. Buddhism teaches that suffering refines awareness. It strips away what is unnecessary and reveals what is essential. When you allow this process, you stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as transformed. Letting go also changes how you relate to the future. You stop chasing a return to how things were and start opening to how things might become. This openness creates possibility. You may not know what your new life looks like yet, but you trust that it will be shaped by wisdom rather than illusion. When life breaks you down, this lesson becomes crucial. You are not failing because you are no longer the same person. You are changing because life has taught you something. Buddhism teaches that clinging to the past self is like holding onto a leaf while the river moves forward. Letting go allows you to flow again. And in that flow, you do not lose yourself. You meet yourself more deeply, a self that is less rigid, less driven by fear, and more rooted in awareness. A self that can move through life with humility, adaptability, and quiet strength. This is not a loss. It is an awakening into who you are becoming. 16. Develop patience with life when answers do not come quickly. When life breaks you down, one of the most exhausting struggles is waiting. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for relief. Waiting for things to make sense again. The mind wants quick answers because answers feel like safety. When answers do not come, frustration grows, fear deepens, and hopelessness slowly creeps in. Buddhism teaches that impatience with life is a hidden form of suffering, not because waiting is easy, but because resisting the pace of life drains your strength. We live in a world that rewards speed. Fast results, fast healing, fast success, fast solutions. This conditioning quietly enters the mind and creates unrealistic expectations during pain. You believe you should already understand what is happening. You believe you should already feel better. You believe that if enough time has passed, suffering should be gone. Buddhism teaches that life does not move according to mental timelines. Growth, healing, and understanding unfold in their own rhythm, and forcing them only creates more inner conflict. Patience is often misunderstood. Many people think patience means passively accepting misery or doing nothing. Buddhism teaches something very different. Patience means staying present without turning waiting into suffering. It means continuing to care for yourself, breathe, and live gently while life unfolds at its own pace. Patience is not resignation. It is endurance with awareness. When answers do not come quickly, the mind tends to fill the silence with fear. It imagines worst-case scenarios. It assumes that uncertainty means something is wrong. Buddhism teaches that uncertainty is not a problem to be eliminated. It is a reality to be lived with. When you learn to stay patient inside uncertainty, you stop exhausting yourself by demanding certainty where none exists. Developing patience does not mean suppressing your desire for change. It means understanding that meaningful change often happens invisibly before it becomes visible. Just as roots grow underground long before a plant emerges, inner transformation happens quietly before it shows itself externally. Buddhism teaches that impatience pulls you away from this quiet process. Patience allows it to continue without interference. Life often teaches through delays, not as punishment, but as preparation. When you are forced to wait, you are often being strengthened in ways you cannot yet see. You may be learning resilience. You may be learning humility. You may be learning to let go of control. Buddhism teaches that these lessons cannot be rushed. They must be lived through. When impatience takes over, the mind turns against itself. It says you should be better by now. It says something is wrong because progress feels slow. Buddhism teaches that this self-pressure increases suffering. Patience softens this inner attack. It allows you to meet yourself with kindness rather than urgency. Patience also changes how you relate to pain. Instead of asking, "When will this end?" you begin asking, "How can I be with this wisely?" This shift reduces struggle. You stop fighting time and start working with it. Buddhism teaches that time itself is not the enemy. Resistance to time is. Learning patience requires trust. Trust that life is moving even when you cannot see movement. Trust that understanding will arrive when the mind is ready to receive it. Trust that forcing clarity too early can distort it. Buddhism teaches that wisdom ripens naturally when conditions are right. Patience also protects you from impulsive decisions. When pain is strong and answers are missing, people often make drastic choices out of desperation. Buddhism teaches that acting from impatience often creates new suffering. Patience creates space for wiser responses. It allows emotions to settle before decisions are made. Developing patience does not mean isolating yourself or waiting endlessly without action. It means acting when action is clear and resting when it is not. Buddhism teaches right timing. Sometimes the most skillful action is waiting. Sometimes the most compassionate response is giving yourself time. Over time, patience becomes a form of inner strength. You realize that you do not need immediate answers to survive. You do not need certainty to continue. You can live, breathe, and care for yourself, even when the future is unclear. This realization reduces fear and restores confidence. When life breaks you down, patience becomes a stabilizing force. It keeps you from collapsing into despair. It keeps you from forcing solutions that are not ready. It teaches you how to remain steady while life rearranges itself. Eventually, answers may come. Or they may come in forms you did not expect, but when they arrive more clearly because you did not rush them. Buddhism teaches that patience is not about waiting for life to improve. It is about learning how to live fully, even while waiting. And in that patience, something profound happens. You stop fighting life's pace. You stop measuring your worth by speed of recovery. You allow yourself to exist as you are, in this moment, without pressure. That allowance itself becomes healing. This is not an easy lesson, but it is a powerful one. Because when you develop patience with life, life no longer feels like an enemy you must outrun. It becomes a process you can move through with steadiness, dignity, and quiet strength, one moment at a time. 16. Accept that you can be strong and tired at the same time. When life breaks you down, one of the most damaging lies the mind tells is that strength and exhaustion cannot exist together. You begin to believe that if you are tired, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained, then you must be weak. You judge yourself for not having the same energy, motivation, or resilience you once had. Buddhism teaches that this belief is deeply mistaken. Strength is not the absence of fatigue. Strength is continuing to exist with awareness, even when you are exhausted. There are seasons in life where simply getting through the day requires immense inner effort. You may still show up, you may still care, you may still keep going in small ways, but inside, everything feels heavy. Buddhism teaches that this kind of quiet endurance is one of the most honest forms of strength. It does not look impressive from the outside, but it requires deep courage on the inside. Many people collapse not because they are weak, but because they are exhausted from pretending they are not tired. They push themselves past their limits, believing rest is failure, and slowing down means giving up. Buddhism teaches that denying exhaustion creates more suffering than exhaustion itself. When you accept that you are tired, the body relaxes. When you accept that you are overwhelmed, the mind softens. Acceptance allows recovery to begin. Being strong and tired at the same time means recognizing your limits without turning them into shame. It means saying, "This is hard for me right now," without concluding that you are incapable. Buddhism teaches that limits are not signs of inadequacy. They are signs of humanity. Every being has limits. Wisdom lies in knowing when to honor them. When you allow yourself to be tired, you stop fighting your own nervous system. Chronic struggle often keeps the body in survival mode. Acceptance sends a signal of safety. The breath deepens. The mind slows. Healing becomes possible. Buddhism teaches that rest is not something you earn after suffering. It is something you need during suffering. Strength during exhaustion also looks different. It is not about productivity or achievement. It is about presence. It is about staying kind when irritation rises. It is about not abandoning yourself when motivation disappears. It is about choosing not to harm yourself with harsh thoughts. These small acts of self-respect require strength, especially when energy is low. Accepting tired strength also protects you from comparison. You stop measuring yourself against who you used to be or against people whose circumstances are different. Buddhism teaches that comparison is rooted in ignorance of conditions. You are not living the same life you once were. Expecting the same output is unrealistic. Compassion begins when you align expectations with reality. Exhaustion often carries information. It may be telling you that you have been carrying too much for too long, that you have not been supported, that you have ignored your own needs. Buddhism teaches that listening to exhaustion is an act of wisdom. Pushing through without listening only deepens imbalance. Accepting that you are strong and tired also changes how you relate to rest. Rest no longer feels like escape, it feels like medicine. Even small moments of rest become meaningful. Sitting quietly, breathing consciously, doing one thing at a time. Buddhism teaches that rest is not inactivity, it is restoration. There is also dignity in tired strength. You are still here, still aware, still choosing not to give up. You may move slowly, but you are moving. Buddhism teaches that life does not measure worth by speed or intensity. It measures truth by presence. Showing up honestly is enough. When life breaks you down, this lesson becomes essential. You do not need to be energetic to be worthy. You do not need to be positive to be strong. You are allowed to be weary and resilient at the same time. This permission relieves enormous pressure. As you accept tired strength, self-compassion deepens. You stop demanding more than you can give. You begin caring for yourself in quieter ways. This care slowly rebuilds energy, not all at once, but gently. Buddhism teaches that gentleness is not weakness. It is a form of intelligence. Over time, strength matures. It becomes less about pushing and more about sustaining, less about proving and more about preserving. You learn how to continue without burning yourself out. You learn how to endure without becoming bitter. This is a refined strength, shaped by experience. When you stop rejecting your exhaustion, you stop rejecting yourself. And when you stop rejecting yourself, life feels less hostile. Even in difficulty, you feel more whole. Buddhism teaches that wholeness does not require perfection, it requires honesty. So when life feels heavy and you are tired beyond words, remember this: you are not weak, you are human. And the fact that you are still breathing, still aware, still choosing to stay, even in exhaustion, is proof of a strength deeper than force, a strength that does not shout but endures. 17. Trust that even this pain is shaping you in ways you cannot yet see. When life breaks you down again and again, one of the most painful thoughts that arises is the feeling that all this suffering is pointless. You may think that nothing good can possibly come from what you are enduring. The pain feels random, unfair, and excessive. Buddhism teaches that this belief is understandable, but incomplete. Not because suffering is secretly pleasant or desirable, but because its deeper effects often unfold far beyond your current understanding. In the middle of pain, the mind sees only loss. Lost energy, lost time, lost hope, lost versions of yourself. But Buddhism teaches that human growth does not happen only through success or comfort. It happens through friction, through pressure, through experiences that strip away illusions and force awareness inward. This does not mean suffering is good. It means suffering, once present, is not wasted. Right now, you may not see what is changing within you. You may only feel exhaustion, confusion, or sadness. But change does not announce itself while it is happening. Like bones strengthening under weight or seeds growing beneath soil, transformation occurs silently. Buddhism teaches that the deepest changes often happen in darkness, before the mind can recognize them. Pain reshapes perception. After suffering, you see life differently. You notice subtleties you once ignored. You feel more deeply. You become more aware of impermanence, vulnerability, and the preciousness of simple moments. These shifts may not feel like gains, but they are. Suffering also strips away what is false. false identities built on control, false confidence built on certainty, false expectations about how life should behave. Buddhism teaches that when these illusions fall apart, it feels like losing yourself. But what you are actually losing is what could never truly protect you. What remains is something quieter and more real. You may not feel stronger right now, but strength is being formed in ways that are not obvious. Strength of patience, strength of endurance, strength of emotional honesty, strength of compassion. Buddhism teaches that these forms of strength are not dramatic. They are subtle and enduring. They do not disappear when circumstances change. Pain also deepens humility. It teaches you that life is larger than your plans, that control is limited, that vulnerability is unavoidable. This humility softens judgment, both toward yourself and others. Buddhism teaches that humility is not weakness. It is alignment with reality. From this alignment, wisdom grows. When life breaks you down, it often forces you to slow down, to question what truly matters, to reevaluate how you live, what you chase, and what you neglect. These questions may feel uncomfortable, but they are essential. Buddhism teaches that questioning is part of awakening. Without disruption, many people sleepwalk through life. You may feel that pain has taken more than it has given, and perhaps it has. Buddhism does not deny loss. Some losses are permanent, some scars remain, but wisdom teaches that even wounded parts can become sources of understanding. You may carry pain, but pain will not be the only thing you carry. You will also carry insight, depth, and perspective. Trusting that pain is shaping you does not mean glorifying it. It means not concluding that it is meaningless. It means allowing time and awareness to reveal its effects gradually. Buddhism teaches that premature conclusions block insight. When you allow life to unfold without rushing meaning, understanding emerges naturally. This trust also protects you from despair. Despair says, "This pain has ruined me." Trust says, "This pain is changing me." These two beliefs lead to very different inner worlds. Buddhism teaches that the way you interpret suffering shapes how deeply it wounds you. Trust does not require certainty. You do not need to know how this pain will help you. You only need to stay open to the possibility that it is not destroying you entirely. Staying open keeps awareness alive, and awareness is what allows growth to occur. As time passes, you may begin to notice small changes. You respond differently to stress. You relate differently to others. You value different things. You no longer chase what once consumed you. These changes are signs that pain has been working quietly in the background, reshaping priorities and perception. Buddhism teaches that awakening often begins where comfort ends, not because comfort is bad, but because it rarely demands awareness. Pain demands attention. It forces you into the present. It reveals attachment. It exposes fear. These revelations are uncomfortable, but they are honest. You may still wish this pain had never happened. That wish is human. Buddhism does not ask you to be grateful for suffering. It asks you to meet it with awareness instead of rejection. Awareness allows pain to move through you rather than define you. Trusting this process also means releasing the need to see results immediately. Some changes take years to reveal their value. Some insights only make sense in hindsight. Buddhism teaches patience not because it is virtuous, but because life unfolds slowly. When life breaks you down, it is tempting to believe that you are being punished or left behind. Buddhism teaches that life is not personal in that way. It moves according to causes and conditions, not fairness or cruelty. Understanding this removes some of the bitterness. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "How will I meet this?" Meeting pain with trust does not mean passivity. It means continuing to care for yourself while allowing life to shape you. It means staying present, staying gentle, staying open. These qualities allow transformation to occur without hardening your heart. Over time, trust becomes quieter. You no longer need to convince yourself that everything will be okay. You simply know that whatever happens, you will meet it with awareness. This knowing brings peace that does not depend on circumstances. One day, perhaps unexpectedly, you may look back and realize that this period changed you in ways comfort never could. Not because it was easy, but because it was honest. Because it forced you inward. Because it taught you what matters when everything else falls away. Until then, trust does not mean certainty. It means staying. Staying with the breath. Staying with awareness. Staying with life, even when it hurts. Buddhism teaches that this staying is itself transformation in motion. So, if life feels like it is breaking you down, remember this. You are not being erased. You are being reshaped, slowly, quietly, beyond what you can currently see. And as long as awareness remains, growth is still happening, even in the dark. When life breaks you down, it does not mean you are weak, lost, or failing. It means you are being asked to meet life more honestly than before. Buddhism teaches that suffering is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is a sign that something is changing. Every moment of pain, confusion, and exhaustion carries an invitation to awaken deeper awareness, patience, and compassion within you. Strength, as you have seen, is not loud or forceful. It is quiet endurance. It is presence when despair whispers that nothing matters. It is kindness toward yourself when the mind becomes harsh. It is patience when answers do not arrive on time. It is the willingness to stay open when life tempts you to close down. These forms of strength do not announce themselves, but they shape you in ways that last. Positivity, in this path, is not pretending everything is fine. It is trusting that nothing is permanent, including pain. It is believing in your ability to begin again, to adapt, and to grow, even when you feel broken. It is choosing awareness over avoidance, and compassion over self-judgment. This kind of positivity is grounded, realistic, and deeply human. Life may not become easier immediately. Some wounds take time. Some answers take patience. Some changes unfold slowly and silently. Buddhism does not promise quick relief. It offers something more stable, the understanding that you can remain present, gentle, and awake through whatever arises. That awareness itself is unbreakable. If you remember one thing, let it be this. You do not need to be fearless, energetic, or certain to be strong. You only need to stay. Stay with the breath, stay with awareness, stay with life, even when it feels heavy. Every moment you remain present is a moment of quiet courage. And slowly, without force, without pressure, strength returns. Not as who you used to be, but as who you are becoming. Wiser, softer, more grounded, still standing.